I guess I start to feel my body start getting ready to prep. And then I know as soon as, like, again, as soon as I hit that clock, physically, the breath starts changing. The music gets quiet, like the lights get dim, and that's when it's time to go.
What is going on, AIM fam? Welcome to another edition of the AIM podcast. Super excited about this one. We've got a special guest on here with us today, Frank Minervini, CrossFit coach, athlete extraordinaire, super fun guy, one of the most attractive guys in the room, competes with Doug for that level right there. We are so excited to have you here, Frank. Welcome.
All right, thank you for having me, Justin and Doug. I really appreciate it, man.
So what we're going to kind of bring to you guys today a little bit is this idea of flipping the switch. So when you have to get work done, when it's time to work out, when it's time to accomplish your goals, when it's time to do anything that you've got to do in life, you've got to flip that switch. You've got to flip that switch onto the on mode, and you got to get rolling. And Frank, we want to kind of bring this into you, especially coming from the more athlete side of this and the more training side of this, and bringing Doug in as well, but kind of how you guys go about flipping that proverbial switch when it's time to get the work done.
Okay. Doug, do you want to start, or do you
Yeah, man.
want me to just play with it?
Yeah. Well, we definitely want to hear your thoughts on it. This is such a cool concept. When Justin presented this to me, my mind went all over the place. But I think one of the coolest things you see as you study, like one thing I really enjoy is studying great people, like people that are very successful in all industries, in business, in sports, whatever the case may be. And I kind of try to find those common themes, like what strings them all together. What are they all doing that takes them and sets them over the edge? And I think one thing you see right off the bat is they know how to flip the switch. They have that understanding, that maturity, that confidence, and just the assurance that they're going to do whatever it takes to be successful in their endeavors. And they get it. They have a serious approach to them. So that's kind of the first thing I see in just successful people across the board.
I completely agree with you, Doug. So I guess for me, in myself, so the way I guess that I roll with things every day, we have specific programming. Obviously, I am a CrossFit athlete who's looking to compete, and so my programming is built throughout the week. But I always never look for the week in advance. I always look for the day and what I have structured. Once I'm done with the programming, then I allow myself to look ahead. And so as I prepare for the day, I know where in workouts, the basic one that Justin and I know very well, Fran, you got 21, 15, 9 thrusters and pull-ups. You're looking at that workout, and it's, oh man, I mean, if you look at it days in advance, you're stressing about it, you're worrying about it, you're nervous about it. There's many workouts that I'm nervous about as I go through, but I know as soon as I see that clock going down, or I hit OK on the switch, it's right then and there. It's time to go. Or for my my words is burn it down. Like when I see that clock or I hear the beep of 3, 2, 1, I know in my head that is when I take this giant breath, and that switch is gone, and it is time to absolutely work.
I find that interesting, Frank, and I want to talk more about that because this is kind of very specific under a microscope. But okay, so you're talking about in your example here, you see the clock, you hear the sound. So like these are physical things. Like you see it with your eyes, you hear it with your ears. So there's senses involved with this transaction. Like, is that what really gets you going, or is it something you think kind of happens premeditated beforehand that gets you ready for this, or is it that like physical sensation that really clicks it into overdrive?
So I believe it's kind of both. So I guess as I was saying, like I prep for the day, and so like I'm thinking about the workout, but I'm not really like starting to focus on it because I may have 5 pieces for the day, or I may have three simple workouts, or a little bit longer of a day. But like when it's that specific moment, I may as I'm warming up, I'll think about it. I'll think about the rep scheme, or I'll think about the loading or the movements where I can rest here, where I can push here, and then so I guess that's where mentally I start to wrap my brain around it. And then like once I'm going into more specifics of moving with the barbell or moving on gymnastics, or just starting to warm up specifically to the movements, that's when I guess I start to feel my body start getting ready to prep. And then I know as soon as I hit that clock, physically, the breath starts changing, the music gets quiet, like the lights get dim, and that's when it's time to go and time to burn it down.
Yeah, Frank, I totally get that 100%. I always joke with people when I'm coaching and even when I'm just working out that there's something about just when it's time to go that nothing else in the whole gym could matter. Like they're like, what kind of music do you want to listen to? And I tell them, honestly, as soon as that clock hits go, I don't hear it. There's nothing in my mind that thinks about that music. There's nothing in my mind that thinks about the lighting. There's nothing in my mind that thinks about which fan is running or what like that, or who's where or what's the what. It's just me in my space with myself getting stuff done.
And to your point, Justin, I think, if you get to a point where you do start to care about those things, you're probably not fully turned on. That switch is probably not fully on. And I think a lot of times so many people get, they think they're locked in, they think this, but they're getting consumed by these external factors where they're probably not doing a good enough job of focusing in on the task at hand. So I think that's really where I think that's really what this topic is all about, is being able to find ways to focus on whatever you have to do at the moment and really find value in just grinding and being productive and effective in those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to second that one too. I agree with focusing on the moment, but now switching it over to a coach's aspect, I've always made the joke, obviously with shorter workouts, again, just like Fran, I'm like, all right, listen, like you're going to think of one song, and that one song, by the end of the song, you will be finished. So it better be either long or really short. So again,
true.
Get ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. You bring in a cool point. I have read a lot of super successful people's books or listen to what they're saying. And one big thing that a lot of people bring into the world today is the key steps to being productive. The best way to be productive and what kills productivity. And one of those top things that kills productivity is actually multitasking or focusing on too much at once. So a lot of people think, oh, I can multitask and I'm just going to get a lot of stuff done. But in all reality, you're just going to get a lot of junk not done all the way. And that's the same way.
Absolutely. With, again, going back to CrossFit, as I normally shall do, that's how I believe a lot of people get distracted in their days of training. They think about, oh, I have this many sets after this, or I have some accessory work after this. I got to do this, or I got to do that after. And like, no, when that clock says 10, 9, 8, like it's not about what I have to do after. It's what do I have to do right now in the moment. Like, what do I have to complete? What's the task at hand? And how fast do I need to go? And so I think people lose that sight. They just think of, oh, volume this, or all the stuff that I have to do today, instead of just taking one piece at a time and focusing on that task.
Kind of another thing I wanted to think about a little bit that you're both hinting at is, Doug, you're kind of talking about those physical traits that are happening in the world right then that are kind of stimulating this proverbial switch flip. And that's kind of how that's this exact science of how habits are formed. And that can go for just about anything. We talked about it earlier in an episode where we talked about making your bed every single day and kind of this idea we had of the productivity jumpstart. But it's those habits. So it's over time, Frank, that you have said to yourself, when that I hear that, and the clocks that we use in the gym beep when you count down from 3, which is like the biggest thing that I think helps. One time our clock stopped beeping the same way and it beeped a different way, and I was so thrown off. But it's those little habits, those little ticks that then set you into that switch flip. Those little things that you do, that little set that you've taught yourself. Doug, the same way you do with your basketball free throws, the thousands upon thousands of free throws that you've ended up doing. Frank, the hundreds upon hundreds of workouts that you've done with that clock ticking down, or with your little routine, or whatever you guys are trying to accomplish in your life. Whatever you need to do to be productive, you've got to have a little habit instilled, and you're going to lock in. For me, when I want to get work done, I'll go wash my dishes and I'll sit down and roll.
Justin, that's a great point. And I think you bring in such a cool element to this conversation, and the fact that, like, yes, it's important to flip the switch and focus on whatever you're doing. But in order to do that effectively, there's so much work that has to be done before you get there, because you can't just say, okay, I'm going to flip the switch and just know what to do. You've got to prep. You've got, like, you know, Frank was talking about this earlier, and I totally agree. How I kind of wanted to ask that question, almost not a trap, but like to see what he'd say. But he answered it the same way I would have. It's both. It's the preparation that you do beforehand, and then it's, you know, right up into that moment when you're literally flipping the switch. And I think that's something too many people lose sight of. They just want to flip the switch. They just want to jump in and be great. They want to jump in and be successful, but they don't do the stuff to be able to flip the switch. So, like, you don't just get a switch. The switch doesn't just fall out of the sky. Like, you have to earn the switch. And I think too many people miss that.
That's
like
perfect.
that quote. I watch him butcher it. Everybody wants to be great until they see what greatness requires. And so again, it's that mental, or that prep before, what people like, because I definitely didn't acquire this switch that the normal life Frank, the chill, lackadaisical, like, move through life Frank, to competitive Frank, the Frank that kicks in once I see the clock or I know I'm getting ready to train and burn it down. That definitely did not happen over the course of a week. Like, this has been years of prep and still years of focus. Because Justin, even Doug, like, even in your life of athletics, like in CrossFit's just, I believe, more as mental as it is physical, regarding the stuff that you must push through, and go through. And even in athletics, like, I believe it's mental. A lot of stuff, like the adversity you push through and everything you see in your life, through the games, the athletes you see and the athletes you always face.
I agree. 100%. I agree. I think again, a lot of people lose sight of that. I think it's easy to see, what you do physically, your performance, your metrics of how you perform as an athlete, as a CrossFitter. But, like, to be great, your mental has to be better than your physical. And I think too many people lose that. And, like, your mental is how you flip the switch. Your physical doesn't flip the switch. You have to make the decision in your mind before your body can do it. And I think that's what people need to understand. Flipping the switch is so important, because if you can't flip the switch mentally, physically, you're not going to be there. You're not going to be performing at your peak. You're not going to be maxing at your top weight. Like, that's just the way it is. The mental, you have to conquer the mental first. You have to.
Oh man, if people can see me shaking my head right now.
Yeah.
Because I 100,000% agree with that here. Like, it's not like a physical, like, locked in, like everything's tight, your flexion or whatever. Like, no, it's the switch that's up in this brain right here saying, like, simply put, it's just one word: go.
You brought in a cool point, Frank. And Doug, you're probably the exact same way, just like in a normal day. And this was one of the hardest things for me when I transitioned to coaching, is because when I was just in the gym working out or training, I was so locked in and so focused. And then when you're coaching, it's such a different aspect. And I often get kind of in trouble when I go into this aspect, but most of the time I'm really playful, joking around a lot, just kind of like having a good time, just generally want to be happy and joyful. But when my brain flips my switch, like, if you're in the way and I'm coming through the door on a run, I'm going to truck you. Like, you better get out of the way or I'm moving you out of the way. And like a normal me would never do that. But there's just something in my mindset that when the competitive side comes out, when that switch is flipped, it's just like, you better move out. And that's what you guys are talking about, that total mindset that you're playing with. And it doesn't come over one day like we were talking about. It's that marathon, not that sprint. And I think another thing people come into is they see massive lifts. They see really cool gymnastic movements. They see Doug sinking free throws like nobody's business, but they don't consider the years of work that has gone into that. You didn't walk into the gym one day and power clean 315. No, not even close. You maybe like touch the barbell. Doug, you didn't walk into the gym one day and just sink free throw after free throw after free throw. You couldn't just walk into the gym one day and dunk. No, all those things are just acquired over time. They're habits that you've built slowly upon slowly. You're building that foundation to support what you back up. Even JB brought it in. Your confidence is in the work you've put in. It's not because you're arrogant. You're confident because you know you can back up what you've done.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I like the thing. Obviously, I know, Justin, I really hope you won't truck anybody as you're running. But I mean, if you do, just hopefully you just catch them as you're coming in. But I resonate with that in a way, because a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people, my gym, they're like, hey Frank, like, I'm gonna come train with you. I'm like, all right, great. Like, listen, I would love to train with whoever, whenever, like, I would love to, but I make it very, very clear that if you're going to train with me, I am going to try to absolutely destroy you. not like make sure you lift heavy, because again, like, coach's brain will kick in and make sure you're moving well. But if we're doing a workout, like, I'm going to make sure, like I told one of my buddies once, we were doing, it was just a whole bunch of conditioning. So it was a whole bunch of laps around the building. And he was just telling me, he's like, Frank, I'm gonna run with you. He's like, all right, man. I was like, listen, I was like, I'm not gonna say this. I'm not trying to say this to be mean, but I'm gonna lap you, and I'm trying to lap you every single round. And sure enough, that was literally not just like make him feel bad, because that's not the point. That wasn't the point. It was just my competitive brain is just so ready to win and to push myself to that limit. I literally, like, was able to go beyond where I wanted to go and make sure that it was a priority to lap him and get better times across all intervals.
I love that, Frank. Because honestly, like, when you told me that story, my immediate thought was basketball. Just kind of hitting another application of that. And even when Justin said, I'm gonna run you over like a truck. When you flip the switch and you're trying to accomplish something, like, you don't need to be a different person, but there's some things that have to change. And what I mean by that is like you're saying, like, when you are locked in, when you flip the switch and you're in a workout and you're training somebody, like, y'all can be friends outside of the gym. Y'all can be buddies. You can be, both of you guys are great guys. Y'all are both, love the Lord. You're great guys. But when you're in that moment, you got to get the people around you better. And sometimes that means you got to be a little more serious, a little more harsher. With basketball, man, there's a lot of times where, everybody wants to be buddy. But when you step between those lines, it's about making the person next to you better and helping your team win. And so whatever that takes, and not being dirty, not being a bad guy, but just being serious enough where you care so much about the team and other people getting better that you'll do what that takes. And I think that's the same thing you're talking about, Frank, because that's such an important element of flipping the switch, being able to get in that mental state where you're making those decisions, where you're acting that way to help people.
Yeah, I want to kind of like precedent something and say that you put a great point in, Doug. But this whole idea of flipping the switch is not saying like, I'm going to be a jerk. It's not saying I'm going to just totally mess you up. It's saying that when the time comes, I'm going to lock in and get done what needs to get done. Whatever that is, whether we're talking CrossFit, whether we're talking basketball, whether we're talking business work, or whatever your goals or ambitions you're trying to accomplish right there, is when it's time to put the work down, you've got to be able to get work done. You've got to be able to flip that switch to accomplish the goals you want to reach in your life, whatever they may be.
I mean, yeah, that could be. I mean, I know. I mean, from my life and learning it, obviously through CrossFit, of flipping that switch, just going. Um, I've done that many of times with assignments, at Western, as I'm trudging through school, typing my papers. Like sometimes it becomes crunch time, and it's where the phone goes off, the clock's beside me, and I treat it like a workout, and it is 3, 2, 1, go. And all I simply do is, just work. It simply can be applied through many many ways in your life. Doing stuff around the house, like, oh, I'm not saying like every workout or everything at your home's for time now. So like you have to have the best time, or you're looking to PR your next broomstick, whatever, or sweeps around the floor in your kitchen or something like that. Um, but just, I guess, putting more of a priority on getting stuff done, and simply, again, flipping the switch and getting the work done.
I think it really shows where your priorities come from too, what you're trying to accomplish, and that's where that switch is going to flip. Whatever you devote your time to, whatever you actually want to get done, that's where your priorities are going to shine.
Or that door can be pretty interesting. Or I guess that's a weird analogy, but because for many people, you saying that's, yeah, like their priority, and that's where the priorities lie. So, I mean, I can go into where people there's distractions, there's many distractions, and people think they're all physical, of like a phone vibrating or your watch going off because it's received a text message. But like, I mean, again, if you can see the Zoom call, this is where the distractions will come in. I was actually listening to another podcast about another games. He was actually a games athlete, and he was talking about, for himself, as he trains for long conditioning pieces, he doesn't play anything, no music, nobody. He's alone, training alone, doing everything alone. And what happens is it brings in the negative sides of training, the negative sides of that mental fortitude. Like the enemy can saying all these things, just trying to tear you down. And that's where, again, Justin, like, where are your priorities? If your priorities are going to focus on the negatives, that's where that switch really on, or is it halfway in the middle and it's popping? It's either want to turn on, you can hear it, or it's getting ready to come on, coming off, coming on, you can see the light flickering. That's where I think that's where the work comes in personally, to develop that skill of flipping the switch. I'm not saying you have to go do your next workout in dead silence, saying no to whatever your brain's saying, but just really listening to yourself is huge, huge, huge in developing that mental brain of flipping that switch.
Well, sweet. Guys, I think that was really awesome. I think that was really good. I think people are really going to benefit from this mindset that they're going to have to take. Doug, Frank, you guys got anything else you kind of want to leave the people with? Any last minute thoughts on those?
Yeah, man, I'll just jump in and say, this has been, to me personally, I think this has been one of the coolest topics we've covered, just because of how deep you can kind of go with it. I think we've done a good job of bringing a lot of value to all our listeners, but I think there's even more you could take this. So I would just encourage people listening to really explore this idea of flipping the switch, but making sure you're just doing whatever it takes to not only help yourself get better, but the people around you. And this encouragement to just continue putting the work in, because your time is coming, your moment's coming. And this has been a pleasure to have Frank on the episode today. He's a beast. So it's always good to hear his thoughts, and, he's a hard worker. So it's always good to hear that, but I just appreciate you, Frank, for being on, man.
Listen, I'm honored to Mel. Actually, I guess I'll give my last thought, or something I like to say. I've told this to Doug many of times, and I don't know, Justin, you've heard this before, but I guess we could slowly close with this. But I've always been told, you never just want to be good, always strive to be great. And so I hope people can use that as well. That's pretty important and to think about as you move through life.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for hopping in with us. For Frank, Doug, for the AIM team, this is Justin. And remember, guys, when you go out this week, flip that switch, accomplish those goals, and get your mind right. Let's get out.